lot of okay, that's good. Yeah, let's continue now. Okay. Hello, Mirko, can you hear the thing?
Yeah, I can hear. Is it me? So is that you?
Yes, that's me. So just continue now. You are on a separate.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. I'm pretty sure I can. I mean, it's not as clear as always, but I can hear you, which is fine. That's good enough. That's better. That's better. Okay, so I see Chumba joined us as well in the meantime, which is great. So I think we'll start officially the session for the recording as well. And so the first thing I was saying, so there's a few things that I wanted to do today with all of you. Let's see what we can get done in a sense, right? The first thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to give you a chance to explore a little bit more the various databases and search engines. So that's the first thing that I wanted to do. So that means like actually giving you maybe a half hour or so, even 40 minutes. We'll see how much time we can have to continue working on looking for articles, right? Looking for articles, books, magazines, any resource basically that you can find that is relevant to your topic. A few weeks ago we started this, if you remember. A few weeks ago we started this. We looked at we used the strategy worksheet, if you remember the strategy worksheet, which was composed of 3 keywords, right? Where we outlined 3 keywords for our topics and tried to see if any results would come up basically based on those 3 keywords, right? And I'd asked you if you had some time to keep playing around, keep searching by using different combinations of keywords, right? That can help you maybe find some resources materials that can help you build your literature review. However, what we did not do last week, 2 weeks ago, sorry, what we did not do was I didn't actually show you what a literature review looks like, right? Because we were just doing for the moment, we were just in the first step of it, which was just locating some resources. So that's the second thing I wanted to do today. So the second thing I wanted to do today was after we've had some time to do some more research, what I wanted to do was I wanted to actually show you a few models of literature reviews so from other MRPs, so that you can have a look at what it actually looks like and what are the different ways in which you can organize a literature review, right? And so when you actually write it, this is what I mean. And so that's the second thing that I wanted to do. And then I also wanted to go over references and citations, which is obviously very relevant to the literature review section, because the literature review section is really the part of your MRP and MRP proposal where you actually engage the largest amount of literature, right? So you're really working with a lot of foreign ideas, and by foreign ideas I mean ideas external to yours, right? So like other people's ideas. So it's the section where you'll be doing the most referencing and the most citation, right? So that's why I think it's important to go over it at this point. Also, I mean, I know that a few of you had asked already, actually I think all of you had asked if we could have a session also on revising citations and references. So I mean, it comes, I think, both as as a useful tool due to the MRP, as well as I know that many of you were actually also interested in just revising it overall. It comes also as a request, I remember. So that's what I had planned for today. It is a lot. I agree with you. So it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot to cover. So we'll see what we can cover. If we can only cover you know, the first two things we'll leave citation and referencing for next week, which will be, by the way, our last session. So our last session. So I see a graduate. I can't see them. Congratulations. Hi. Is he from York programs or no? Ah, KU, that's why, because I was like, I swear, I'm not familiar with his face, which is weird, because I know most of the students in the York program, so that's why I was like, I don't know his face, but that's amazing. So KU students finished as well. So there is some KU students just graduated. That's amazing. Well, extend my congratulations to them afterwards, to your colleagues from KU. Anyways, yeah, so going back to what I was saying, so that's what I have on the plate for today. I mean, I know that's quite a few things, like I was saying, so we'll see what we can do. I mean, if we don't have time to do everything, that's okay. We have the last session next week together. So in that last session, we can finish off whatever we're not able to today. Also a word on the course itself. So I mean, obviously we have, as I was saying, next week will be our last session together. That does not mean though, however, that, I mean, we have to stop working together. Like, it doesn't mean that. In fact, after the last session, I'm hoping that, you know, you will continue working on your MRP proposals at that point with your supervisors as well, who will also step in, but you have my continued support as well. So I mean, what I was thinking is we can obviously always talk on WhatsApp. We can, you know, we can organize a few calls as you continue to work and move ahead with the MRP proposal. So even though the course itself officially ends in the last week of July, it doesn't mean that we need to, obviously, like, it doesn't mean that the work on your MRP proposal stops. Actually, it has to continue, but it also doesn't mean that my support ends. In fact, I'm still here, so we'll still be working together. So that was just a more of formal announcement in a sense, but I just wanted you to know that, I mean, we can continue working together on the MRP proposals regardless of, and I'm hoping that you will continue to work towards the completion of the proposal by August. I'm also hoping that Steve will join us next week. I really hope so. I'll tell him again. He will be taking over basically from me. He will be taking over, I think, probably towards the end of August. So towards the end of August, you will restart a course with Steve. And this course will be similar to ours, to the one we're just finishing basically, so it will be all about your MRP proposals and the building of the continuation of the work on the MRP proposals and then the MRPs themselves. So Steve will work with you, all of you, in terms of basically the next section. So like, he will help you with the methodology. You will go over methodology with him. He will help you in terms of the ethics, and then the data collection and so forth. Basically, all the next steps that then are left in the actual MRP process. So again, that's just as a piece of information for all of you. So that's what I guess the next months and then the next year will look like as well, right? I don't know if there's any comments or questions in terms of what I just said. So in a sense, what we have planned for today, and also just what I said in general about the MRP work and the future outlook on the program, I guess. Are there any comments or questions about anything I said so far? Or is it?
I think that I have some questions. The first one is, are we supposed to second data, like the way you are sending of request to the supervisor? We need to choose together, and we send one to be in the supervision role and the other to be our second leader.
Mohammed, can you speak? Sorry, can you speak a little bit closer to the mic? It was really hard to hear.
I was saying, we use two people for a major research about like the supervisor, the report that you are sending to the supervisor, likewise to another a professor to be our second leader, or we just choose the first person who is the supervisor only.
Good question. So you have a supervisor, and then you're right. You will have a second reader, but the second reader only comes into the picture, Mohammed, towards the end of the process. So the second reader basically, I mean, you can always be. So you can choose to work with a second reader already if you'd like, but you have to tell your supervisor obviously, so they're aware that you're working with someone else too. But generally speaking, in the formal process of the MRP, the second reader only steps in the last month or so of the process. So basically, a month before your defense, pretty much, and that's when the supervisor will ask you officially, Mohammed, Keen, Mohammed Noor, Aden, Omat, who do you want to be your second reader? Who do you want to read this MRP, right? And so basically, you will tell them like whoever it is that you want to be the second reader. Or if you don't know who, if you don't have any particular preference, the supervisor will tell you, is it okay if I send it to so-and-so, right? As a second reader. So the second reader steps in towards the end, but that does not preclude you, that does not stop you from being in contact with a second reader from the very beginning. So, you know, to take advice from a second reader as well, right? As you go along. In fact, I would recommend and I would suggest always having someone else that you're working with too, like someone else to assist you, like a second reader, even if that second reader is a peer, for example, or a colleague, right? So it doesn't even have to be necessarily another professor at the moment. It can even be, it can be me, it can be a peer, it can be anyone else that you want to send it to, so that you can always benefit, because feedback really is a crucial thing. Like feedback on comments and readers in this kind of work is really important, Mohammed, I think. And this, I mean, Mohammed, I'm saying Mohammed because you asked the question, but I mean, it's obviously, this is for everyone.
Yeah, especially when I was here with some of my colleagues. For me, even I have not chosen my supervisor, but they were telling me you did the right time that you could choose the second leader. So I was having a bit of worry about that, but it's now very clear.
Yeah, so you don't worry about it right away, Mohammed. That's basically the nut of the discussion, the core of the discussion, is that you don't need to worry about it right away. But it's but it is important that, again, it is important to reach out at some point, and to other people as well. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I think you personally, Mohammed, your main concern right now is reformulating the new topic, right? Because that's where you are at now. And
Yeah.
well, we can talk more about that individually as well if you'd like, more personally about that. Any other questions about anything I've said so far, in a sense, anything that has been said so far in the session? I don't see any questions. I might be wrong. Unless, Mohammed, you were about to say something. Sorry.
I think you're good on this side. I don't know whether it's too bad.
Okay, sounds good. So what we'll do is, okay, so what I'll ask you to do is, if everyone has their computers, right? As always, like last time too. Perfect. Okay, so what I'll ask you to do is the same thing we did last time, which was if you can log in into the library website. Here I will. Let me do the same here. Actually, wait. Give me 1 second. if I. Okay. Is it visible on the screen what I have open? I have both the worksheet as well as the library website, right? You should be able to see both, I think. From the, is that visible?
Yeah.
Okay. So last time we started working with, this was the strategy worksheet that I was speaking about, right? The searching strategy worksheet. So if you all have it on you, I would suggest maybe like taking it out right now and continuing to work with it. So just as a recap, if you remember, so what we were doing last time, right, was identifying keywords. Remember, determining the keywords basically of our studies, of our work, our research work, and we did that by just breaking down really our main topics, right? So, for example, I mean, the one that you see on the worksheet itself was obviously, that was my strategy, right? That was my topic, my dissertation topic, and then I tried isolating through the 3 key ideas that I was looking at, right? And then we had started to do that for everyone. Has started to do that, I think, right? Everyone had tried to do that. So isolate their key topic into 3 main concepts, right? 3 main ideas, that 2 or 3, doesn't have to be necessarily 3, but 2 or 3 main ideas that are important to your topic. The same way as it was done here, right? On the Spark module. So the same way they did it here. So they chose, for example, the topic here was Aboriginal groups and discussing the challenges in asserting control over ancestral land. And so they divided it as concept 1 being Aboriginals, concept 2 being controlled, and concept 3 being ancestral land, right? And then we saw how it's important to really have synonyms of those keywords, because sometimes basically maybe that word that we are using might not necessarily be the word that is most used in the literature, right? So, for example, Aboriginals, other words that are used might be First Nations, Indigenous people, etc. For control, we saw how maybe control is not the best word. So control, it might be autonomy or sovereignty, self-determination, empowerment, right? And the same way, ancestral land, perhaps we can use other synonyms like land, territory, right? Other keywords that, in a sense, can help with searching for resources. And we saw how basically sometimes we can end up with no search items, right? With no results, in a sense, in what we're looking for. And so we need to play around with these words, right? We started saying that we needed to play around with these words. So sometimes it's about using or ands, right? As well in the research. I don't know. So did anyone have a chance to, like over the last few weeks, did anyone have a chance to explore a little bit the use of databases? And was anyone able to find anything? How are you doing in terms of searches so far? How's the searches going in terms of literature? Have you been able to find anything, or you haven't really had time to, maybe you haven't had time to engage with it much, but those of you who have you been able to see some results in terms of literature?
For me, when I was looking for the second topic that I was trying to do in my research, the primary resource that I looked was the Google Scholar, so that I see some of the current publications about my topic. So I have also gone to JEiE a little bit and read some of the keywords for my questions, and I've seen some of publications as well.
Nice, Mohammed. And where did you look for, Mohammed? First of all, what keywords did you use? What were the keywords that you used?
I used education, technology, and adapt.
So I think those are and so you were able to find something with those keywords. Something popped up?
Yeah, something popped up, yes.
And Mohammed, did you use Omni? Did you use the library, or did you use the databases? What did you use? Do you remember where you searched?
I think I went to, I just wrote JEiE on my computer and it took me somewhere. And then I looked on the site of that for the journals and all the things.
I see. Okay, that's good. Did anyone else? Was anyone else able to find some resources, and was anyone else able to maybe play around with the keywords and explore a little bit, like some of the search, do some searches in a sense for their literature review? Yes, Keen. Keen, can I ask you to come a little bit closer to the microphone? To put it a little bit closer. Thank you. I couldn't hear anything, Keen. I don't know what happened. I don't know why, but I didn't. I'm so sorry. I didn't hear a single thing that was said. I'm so sorry. Nice. So you went on the York Library, basically on the York Library, Keen. I heard you went on the York Library and you did ran some searches. Did anything come up? Did you have any results, Keen? I'm so sorry, Keen. I can't. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with the microphone. I can only hear you in parts.
Can you hear me?
Bits and pieces, Mohammed Noor. Is that you? I can hear bits and pieces.
Yeah, let's see.
Tell me, try speak now. Let's see if.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, now I can hear you a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I have not checked up, but the little knowledge that I have is that when you are trying to maybe to cite your topic, is maybe you write the topic, like for example, impact of urban good in the gap in data. So what we do is you can score Q-score. You can again start from Google Scholar, whereby you type your topic and you search.
Yeah. Tell me. Sorry. Go, Mohammed. For example.
For example, in concept one, you can say impact of poverty.
You can say teachers or orphanhood. Is that what I understand? Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, pardon?
I heard orphanhood and teaching. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, impact of orphanhood in education. You can say on education.
Yeah, that's right. So in your case, for example, Mohammed Noor, in your case, for your topic, right? I think like you said, the key idea is definitely orphanhood, right? Orphanhood is definitely, or other synonyms could be orphans or orphan, right? Orphan children. And then I mean, it really depends from, and then what else? What other key idea do you think is in your according to you? Like what are the other two key ideas or other one key idea of your topic?
Key, like one is overs. Then again, you can search on education.
Yeah.
Again, parentheses.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the key keywords in the topic.
Absolutely, absolutely. Education, orphans or orphanhood. That's right. The thing, impact. You said impact at the beginning too, or Mohammed Noor.
Yeah.
Impact. The thing with impact is that I think this is one of the things that we looked at last time too. The thing with impact is that it's a very broad term, right? So impact might not turn out anything. Like it might be a word that like won't give you any results because it's very broad. So you could try, for example, instead of impact, you could try maybe a more specific impact. You could either you could say like success, or you know what I mean, or educational success in school, you know what I mean, or so you could talk about, or educational achievement in school. Do you see what I'm saying? Or educational performance. So like in a sense, you can, there's a way in which you can take the larger word like impact and think about it more specifically, right? Like what kinds of impact are you talking about, right? Like, so for example, in your case, Mohammed Noor, sorry, what are you interested in terms of what kinds of impacts do you see on children who are orphans in schools? Like what are some of the impacts?
Like absenteeism in the schools.
Yeah, absent, perfect. So that would be a really good term. For example, that would be a really good keyword, Mohammed Noor. You could use absences or absenteeism, right, as one of the keywords. So absenteeism, orphans, education, right, or school. Those could be really good keywords. I think those could turn up something. Those would I'm pretty sure those would give you some literature. So that would be one. So that would be a really good way of looking at it. So instead of impact, you look at, for example, in real terms, what the impact is, right? Do you see what I'm saying, Mohammed Noor?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, that's a really good way of doing it. So, and was anyone else able to find anything, identify? By the way, the microphone now is much better. I don't know if you, Mohammed.
It was not our chosen mode first for the Polycom. It was the computer's audio. Now we fixed that one. It's okay.
That makes sense. That makes sense, Mohammed. Thank you. Okay. So I don't know if Keen, did you want to repeat what you said before? Because before I didn't hear you at all. You were almost like on mute. It was almost as if you were muted. I couldn't hear a single thing you said, Keen. So if you'd like, I would love to hear what you had to say. But up to you. I know that it's annoying to repeat sometimes, especially when it's the third time you're repeating it.
No problem, but I say that I have not gone from the SPAC and also the library, but I've only gone for Google Scholars for looking and searching for the topics, some of the important challenges like that one only.
And were you able to find something on Google Scholar, Keen? Did anything come up?
Yeah, when you go to the Google Scholar, for example, my topic is about women empowerment programs that are available in Hagadera camp. So that when you go to some of the programs that are available and you search it, you see, like, for example, some of the improvements like in programs, like, for example, when you Google it, you get, and some of the challenges like this, what are some of the impacts of the programs? Also, you see it. Yeah.
That's good. So you were able to find something, Keith, something this show.
Yeah, I find something.
That's really good. That's really good. Was it do you remember if it was a book or an article, or if it was like a report on the programs? Do you remember what kind of document you found?
Yeah, there is an article which talks about a program called for girl child education. Nice. Yeah.
That's really good. That's awesome. That's really, really great. I'm happy to hear that you were able to find something. Anyone else wants to share a little bit of their results, basically, or a little bit of the work they've been doing on the literature review?
I've gone through another time with Google Scholar, and I think in my topic, Google Scholar is offering me more more resources than the other such places. It's almost giving me like when I read education technology in the DAP, it's almost like 2,200 results.
That's a lot of results. Those are a lot of results.
Yeah, there's a lot of results for me to go through them and again take them out. Even I'm seeing some of some of writings to people that I know, like how Sabri was talking about education, and also how it's being accessed here in the DAP, like recruiting and retention of Somali female students accessing higher education. There's a lot of them, so I think this one is a bit good topic for me than the other one, which was giving me only one such result or two such results.
You know, okay, but if I may, very quickly, just very quickly, Mohammed, I think the reason why the other topic you weren't getting many results was also because it was a very new topic in terms of the DAB. I think so. I think maybe so all I want to say is maybe the change is good for the MRP, but I do think that it's important to in the future to start looking at the privatization of schools in the DAP. But that's a different thing. Maybe that can be a whole other project outside of the MRP. But maybe for in terms of the MRP, maybe it makes sense to change to something that's more readily available. You know what I mean?
Whenever I have a lot of experience in writing research, maybe I will be taking up that one as well.
Yeah, it can be. I think you might need more time. That's why, Mohammed. It takes more time, not just more experience, but more time. I think that's the thing. And right now, because you're all on very tight deadlines, because but you have to finish by April, so it's hard, right? If you don't have anything to start off, if it's very hard to find literature, it means that okay, what would happen, and this is for everyone as well. So in case you never find literature on a topic, it might just mean that, like we were saying with Mohammed, it might just mean that no one's written on that yet, right? Or there's very little available in terms of scholarly research on it. So in those cases, it's not that the topic is not viable. It just means that you would have to create your own framework. That's what it means. It would mean that you have to borrow from others that have done maybe similar work in other places of the world, or they've looked at privatization of schools in this specific case in North America, right? But then you would have to isolate those aspects which you think are most relevant to your context, right? So let's just say it takes a little bit more work, because it really requires you to build from scratch, in a sense, a whole new field of study for their context. So it's a little bit harder to do in an MRP. And in a PhD, yes, in a PhD you could do that, for example, right? Because you have 4, 5, 6 years, so then you can build that. But in an MRP, it's very difficult to do that. So I think and just to generalize the conversation a little bit, so that everyone gets an idea of what it means, in a sense. If that's also happening to you, then maybe that's something to consider too, right? Maybe you can reorient your topic a little bit as well. That's something that you can always do as well. So thanks for sharing that, Mohammed. I think that's helpful for everyone too. So what's everyone most comfortable with when researching? Does everyone go to Google Scholar? Do most of you go to Google Scholar first? Is Google Scholar the one you're most comfortable with in terms of research?
Yes, Mirko.
Omar, yes, please.
For me, I normally use JSTOR, which I tried twice the Google Scholar, but I'm comfortable with JSTOR, even though I'm thinking of trying the other resources. As I was trying JSTOR, I found an article about youth perspective in education. And I found the DAB, because I came down and write Kenya.
Nice. Good. Yeah.
The DAB is nowhere to be found unless you mention the country.
Yeah. Yeah,
Then
it's tough.
found limitations. At the first keyword, I found youth, the dub narrowed down under Kenya, then limitations, because my topic is youth perspective.
That's right. Yeah.
On impact of COVID-19.
Uh-huh.
So then I went to second keyword or concept as people, place, and also failure. Those are the keywords I found, and I'm still looking for relevant words and also look for different resources apart from JSTOR.
That's really good, Amat. Like both in terms of trying different attempts, like you said, right? Different attempts at using different words to see if anything would show up. So first of all, a really good suggestion. That was really good, Amat, what you did in terms of for everyone as well. So if you're not finding anything in terms of the DAB necessarily, you can also always broaden the geographical location, right? You can do like exactly what Amat just said. So Kenya is a good way of doing it, for example. Other times you can even try putting Eastern Africa, for example, right? You can try putting Horn of Africa, or just sometimes even broadening it to, I mean, broadening it to the whole African continent is a huge thing, but you could try just to see if anything else turns up in a different locality from yours. Maybe that's experiencing, maybe other refugee camps in other places of Africa are experiencing similar similar challenges or issues. So that could also work too, right? So that's a really good strategy about broadening the location. Sometimes that's a really great strategy. In terms of other strategies that you were presenting, Omot, first of all, yeah, using different spaces as well, right? So that's another good one. If you've tried maybe on like JSTOR and you haven't found anything, try Google Scholar. If you haven't didn't find much on Google Scholar, you can use other search engines that I wanted to show you, in fact, in a second. I will show you some of the other search engines as well. And the databases again, which I think we did last week. We started looking at some databases as well. I think we looked at Eric, right, a few weeks ago. Did anyone try using Eric? Did anything turn up on Eric? Eric is really comprehensive. Like it has quite a lot, but I find that sometimes the types of materials that are there are often more linked to the North American context than to worldwide context. That's my experience of it, at least. That's not to say that there aren't more international or global contexts, but it's just I find that it's often very limited in that sense, in terms of locations, in terms of geographical locations. Also, the other thing with Eric is that not everything that is, so this is the one thing I wanted to tell you last time too. Databases, whenever you have indexes, right? Journal indexes like Eric or these databases, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will find the PDF of the article, right? I don't know if you've noticed this. Sometimes you only find the abstract. You might find the abstract, or you might be able to locate it. So it tells you where that article is in the world, basically, or it tells you or where it is in the internet, where it is located on the internet. That does not necessarily mean that you are automatically will find the PDF, but it means that you can then try looking for once you have the information for that article, right? So the author, the year, and so forth, then you can begin to look for that article perhaps elsewhere. So you can begin to try to find the PDF. But the good thing about Eric, though, or these kinds of indexes, is that they provide the abstracts. And so because they provide the abstracts, you can already read the abstract and see if it might be relevant to your work, right? So because if it's not, you don't even waste time looking for it, right? If you think it's not relevant. So that was something I wanted to say. I hope that makes sense. So not when you're in the indexes, not everything that shows up is necessarily a full PDF. Like you are able to read the full article. Sometimes you're only able to read the abstracts, and then you have to write down the information for yourself and refer to it again. So that's just something to be aware of as well when you're doing these searches. Yes, I see. Mohammed, tell me. I think you.
I think your question was what's the preferred reference point or database or engine or place that you get your reference. For me, I prefer Google Scholar. Since the BA, I was using this one, and most probably it saves me a lot of time when I'm just want to have my citations. I just click there and then get the citations right from it in any style that I feel like having it. And also it turns out that it has a lot of PDFs or also journals. All these things are there. So I think this one is quite good for me.
No, and Mohammed, and that's great. It's good to have. It's good that you feel comfortable with whatever you're using, right? Because you'll be using it a lot now.
Yeah.
You're trying to work on the literature review. So that's if that's what you feel comfortable with, that's fine. The reason why I wanted to introduce other possibilities is also just because to diversify a little bit, right? Because sometimes maybe Google Scholar might not show every single result. I mean, search engines are limited. So for example, thanks for giving me the opportunity, by the way, because this is a few things that I wanted to show you. So I sent everyone yesterday, I don't know if you saw it, a list of some possible databases and which I found interesting. I compiled this myself. So I mean, some of them might be interesting to all of you. Some of them might not be interesting to all of you. You know what I mean? So you can see, but these are just some few possibilities of resources. So for example, one way to look for things is, like you said, is going through Google Scholar. Another way to look for things is using Omni, right? Or the York, or what is now called, what used to be called the York Library, but is now Omni, if you've seen it, right? So that's the main page at York University, this York Library, right? So Omni is your other choice. So Omni, we can put anything here, like any keywords in a sense, or author. You can search by authors if you know authors already, or keywords, or journal articles, right? Titles or book titles. And this will give you, it should give you some results of what is available at, generally speaking, within the internet or within the reach, what is within the reach of York University, basically, right? That's really what it is. So, you know, it won't give you everything. That's why Google Scholar is a little bit different, because Google Scholar, on the other hand, will give you everything that's available on the web, right? So that means that sometimes Google Scholar will give you things that Omni is not able to find necessarily. But other times it might be that Google Scholar gives you results that you're not able to download, for example, because you don't have access to, right? Instead, Omni will give you access to anything that you find on Omni, you have access to as York students, right? So that's those are some of the differences, right, as well. So for example, does anyone want to give me your topic? And we can try searching on Omni to see if, or you can try doing it on your computer if you want. You can try using Omni, for example, just for a few minutes to see if anything shows up. Does anyone want to throw me their topic? Just or I can. Anyone?
Let me just try mine. How technology improves the learning experience in the DAB Learning Center.
So, Mohammed, what I did is I put technology learning in the DAB. So I just put I chose three keywords from what you told me.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So let's search. Let's see what happens. There's some stuff. There are things there. So we see an article. Can you all see it? There's an article right at the top.
Yeah.
So this is a journal article, right? Critical success factors for the implementation and adoption of e-learning. This is specifically for junior healthcare workers in the DAB refugee camp. It's a slightly different field, but some of the findings from this article could be interesting. So you might want to look at the abstract, for example, of this, just to see more or less what they're talking about, as well as the references, perhaps, to see if what they're using are references that might be of help. Another thing that is found is a dissertation. This is Travel Without Visas, Teacher Perception of a Technology Intervention in the Dadaab Refugee Camp. This is from a teacher perspective. So this is from a teacher perspective. I think Rebecca Grace is someone that I know for some reason. I wonder whether, anyways. The transnational historical logics behind resettlement dreams. This is an article from the Journal of Refugee Studies, for example, right? Yeah. So I mean, as you can tell, so the difference between Omni will give you a wide array of different results, right? Some of them are journal articles, some of them are dissertations, some of them are might even be ebooks, although I don't see any on this page. Some of them might be ebooks. We got 174 results here on Omni. All of these are accessible to you. So if you were to try to download this, you would be able to download it as a York student. On the side, if you can tell, on the side, there's ways of limiting your search, right? So you can, for example, you can only click things that are available online. So if you do that, this will restrict it to anything that's just downloadable, which is in your case, because you won't be able to access the library here in Toronto, right? So obviously you need things that are available online, not things that are available at the library. So that's a good way to filter results, for example, right? To make sure that you have access to it. Other ways to filter results have to do with the resource type. As you can tell, I don't know if you can see it. I hope you can see it down here. Yeah. So that's one way also to restrict your search in terms of what you're looking for, what format. So are you looking for articles? Are you looking for books? Are you looking for dissertations? And you're thinking, well, what's the difference, right? I mean, technically, all resources are good resources as long as they have an author and they have a year of publication, and they have so someone's taking responsibility for them. That's usually a good resource, right? And that brings us back to the Parka test, which I don't remember if we covered, I think, just very quickly a few weeks ago, which was to look at this was the Parka test, right? So the purpose, the authority, relevance, currency, and accuracy of the information, right? So who wrote it? Why does the resource exist? Does the resource meet your needs? How current is the resource? And is the information in the resource reliable? So is there evidence and so forth, right? So as long as it meets this criteria, any resource is a good resource, right? It's just that obviously, if you're starting with your MRP, you want to first look at the texts which are most how can I put it? They're most widely used in a sense. So that your supervisor might be able to help you with that. Helping you identify right away the texts which are most important. And usually journal articles, ebooks, dissertations even will be some of the things that should be first up on your list, right? In terms of stuff, but also reports, statistics, or in reports on the area, for example. The UN database is quite good with that. They have a lot of large databases with information, right? So just going back also to so these are some of the journals that I outlined for you. So for example, we could just do this. We could take, is there any journal from this list that sounds interesting to any of you? Aden, for example, I'm putting you on the spot. Aden, is there any journal that you're interested in looking at from any of these that you see on the screen? What do you think?
Yeah, I've tried to check the journal in Google Scholar. Then I found some articles.
That's good, Aden. That's really, really good. What you found some articles for your MRP?
Yeah, I found some articles.
Anything useful? Anything that you found that could be useful to you, like in writing?
Yeah, very many of them are not useful in my MRP, but some little bit that is useful. I found some of them.
Aden, in what ways were the ones that you identified as useful, right? In what ways are they useful? Like, what had you had that? Like, did you have the chance to quickly look at the titles or the abstracts?
Yeah, and I've taken I've gone to Google Scholar, then I've written my topic, and then I've searched it. And then it gives me some different articles. Then some of them are useful in my MRB. And
That's
some
good.
of them, yeah.
That's good. What are the keywords that you Aden, that are most helpful, that you're noticing are most helpful?
You said factors that influencing parental involvement in policy homework in the DAP comes.
Let's try to see if you want to try. Did you try Omni already?
Yeah.
Aden, did you try here?
I've tried, and then it gives me some articles.
That's
different
good.
articles.
Let's try. Let's see if so you tried using homework habits. No, parental involvement. What did you try it with, Aden? Parental involvement, education, the DAB. Let's see if anything. This is there's definitely a few results that come up. There's 20 results that come up. Not obviously not all of them will be relevant, right? And like you said, so for example, the first one that was there was quite good, I think. This one here, how NGO field workers empower parents of children with disabilities in the DAB. This one seems that is quite good. It's more about parental empowerment, but you would have to see maybe what kinds of what they mean exactly by that, right? What they mean by empowerment. Perhaps that might be another term to use too, that, and perhaps empowerment of parents or parental empowerment in a sense could be another term that might be turning out useful. What if we put parents, homework,
or assignment?
Yeah, like homework or homework habits, and then the DAB. I don't know. So that's for example. I didn't say give much. Okay, let's try removing habits maybe. Yeah, and I mean, it's not finding much, I have to say, Aden. We would have to see, maybe we would have to broaden it a little bit then. You were able to find something on Google Scholar, you said, right, Aden?
Yeah, you can say factors that influence parental involvement.
Okay. Let's try exactly like you said. Parental involvement in education. Okay. Yeah, you're right. This gives some more, Aden. You're right. It gave some more results. It gave quite a lot of results, actually. It gave 243,000 results, which is too much in a sense to go over everything. But it does help. You are able to find some good books, maybe ebooks. I saw a good ebook right here, for example. This one down here, parental involvement in childhood education, building effective school family partnerships. Then this is obviously the context of this ebook might be different from the DAB, right? But you might be able to borrow some of the language and some of the ideas from it, right? And see which ones would work in the DAB, for example, or which ones apply in the DAB. So that one's a good one. Parental involvement as an important factor for successful education. This one's a really good one too, then, right? This one could be a really good one to look at as well. Although again, it's not necessarily based in the DAB. So what if we add the DAB? Let's see what happens if we restrict the location. The results now are only 17. So more doable. Yeah, there's some things here I think that, but again, they're not necessarily. They don't seem, from the titles, they don't seem very relevant to your work, I think, Adam. Just a few of them, for maybe the first ones, but then the next ones aren't that. So maybe, for example, we might have to expand the search to Kenya. You might have to do like what Omot did. So maybe geographically change, or just remove the location altogether, and just look at it more generally, basically as a topic, right? Like how have people talked about parental involvement in different contexts as well, right, Adam? So it could be that as well, which I think when the first one that you told me, factors in parental involvement, this one turned out a lot of search articles. So you would have to go through and see maybe the ones which are most interesting to you. But you definitely have some stuff to look at when you look at it through here. So this is Omni. This is using Omni. The other way you can use Omni is also by taking one of the journal titles, right? Like the ones, for example, that I put here. Let's say forced migration review, right? Let's look at that one. And then you can look for the actual journal. So that's another way that you can use your Omni too. So if you look for the journal, right? Can you all see it? The first result that we get is basically the actual review, is the journal itself, right? So if we go on the journal, if we click on the journal like this, and then it shows us basically, you see all these options where the full text is available. All the full texts are available. So all the articles from that journal, and we can really just choose any one of these. It doesn't matter. Anyways, all of them will take us there, because as York students, we have access to it. So, and then this opens, for example, this is the journal itself, right? So forced migration review is a journal, and this journal functions on the basis of editions, right? Of issues. And so depending on the issue, on the theme of the issue, we can have a look at all the articles that they published in that year on that issue. Does that make sense? So does anyone ever search this way? Does anyone ever use journals themselves? Or is that something new that you maybe, because I heard that you're very, very familiar with Google Scholar, you use York library sometimes. Does anyone ever use like journals themselves, like go through the journal pages? This is also another way of doing it, right? So for example, you would look at let's look at this edition here. Climate crisis and local communities, trafficking and smuggling, right? And so you would then look at the actual PDF issue, right, of the article, and see if there's any entry in this journal, that you are interested in, right? For example. Let's see, in this case, so for example, this one is good in terms of gender, for example. If Keen, for example, for you you're looking at gender, over here there you would see you can find some things on gender inequality and local response in Somalia and Somaliland. Or for example, there's a few entries on quite a few entries on women like inequality between women and men, right? On different things. So this could be. So this is another way to do some searches too. You go on the journal, right, on the journal page, and you look at the different editions of the journal. That's another way to do it too. That might turn up some interesting things and not necessarily. This one is good. Education. This one specifically on education. Needs, rights, and access in displacement, for example. So this is the thing with these kinds of journals, right? Is that they're specifically about displacement and refugeehood. So you might find the context might be more close to the kind of research that you are trying to do, right? In terms of the field that you're looking at, which is the field of displacement. Most of the times it's the field of like the life in refugee camps, right? So for example, this one would be a really good one, I think, this issue here of the journal, right? Education, needs, rights, and access in displacement. A lot of your work is around these kinds of topics. And if we look at the titles, I don't know, maybe some of you might already see something that you're interested in. For example, early childhood development and support, this is in Syria, but gender equality in education in emergencies. This is a good one, Keen. Again, going to your topic, might be a good article for you to read, for example. Gender equality in education in emergencies. And then, you can have a look through these, right? And you would be able to see different articles that might be all relevant. For example, if Rukia's not here today, but there's a really good article on refugee children with communication disability in Rwanda, providing the educational services they need. So for anyone who's looking at disability, for example, right, in education in refugee camps, that could be a good one. So does anyone else want to try anything? Maybe any other searches? Do we want to look at maybe a different journal? Are you interested in any of these other journals? It might be interesting. I don't know. So these are all different ways in which you can do some searches. Another way as well. There's an even additional way of doing it. Is what we were doing last week, which is with what's it called? With databases, right? Remember when we were looking with databases for research databases, and we were doing it by subject. So one really good way to do that is if you go under York Libraries, right? Sorry, I went maybe a little bit too fast, but if you go under York Libraries and you go under research guides, right? Remember? Research guides, and then you click on research guides, and this gives you all the possible guides by subject, right? Listed by subject area, so by the field of research. And for example, if you go under African studies, so going back to context again, this is based on geographical context, right? You will find that if you click on journal articles, there is a quick link here. I don't know if you cannot see it. African journals online. Do you see this? And if you click on this one, I found this recently myself. I didn't even know about this. But York has a lot of access to actually open access journals from Africa, from the African continent, right? So these are journal articles produced in Africa, not in Europe, like not in North America, but in Africa. And so obviously oftentimes they deal with issues and they use perspectives which might be more interesting to many of you, right? Because they might be some of the challenges, some of the issues which are being addressed might be closer to the ones that you're trying to address and look at, right? So this is another really good resource, for example, and these are all free access, so they're open access, so you don't have to pay anything to have the full text, which is good. And you can look at this through, I mean, you can explore this maybe on your own, but you can see that you know, if you're a researcher, so in this case you're a researcher, right? You can look at the different articles here. They're even listed by country, for example, right? So you could look at Kenya, for example. You could look at journal articles from Kenya specifically, and it gives you all these journals. See African Journal of Food and Nutritional Security, African Journal of Biotechnology, Journal of Food, Nutrition and Agriculture and Development, etc. I don't know. Is this helping? Like seeing some of these spaces in which you can explore and find some literature. I hope you're. I mean, at the end of the day, there's not much you can do in terms of showing this. Like I can show them to you, but I think a lot of it will depend on you trying to then on your own explore these, right, and see if you can find anything. And then I think the best way to do it is to keep track. Here, let me close this because the best way is to keep track basically of your searches. So that's why I provided all of you with the strategy worksheet, the worksheets. The reason why I did that is because this way you can actually keep a recorded version, like a written version basically of everything that you've looked for and what kinds of results came up every time that you looked for things, right, with different keywords. Does that make sense? And every time you can refine your searches further, so you can use different keywords, different synonyms of words, right? So this is more or less the searching part. Do you want to see, how are you all doing? Like in terms of the search, do you want some more time? Do you want maybe 5 to 10 minutes to try to look for other articles to see if anything comes up, using maybe some of these sites, some of these ways, some of these strategies? How are you all feeling? Tell me, what are some of the questions that you have, or some of the doubts that you have, or if you want me to look at you want me to show you any of these spaces specifically? Maybe do you want me to try to use one of your topics to look for something, to see if it turns up, if anything shows up, or you tell me. How do you want to proceed? Otherwise, the other thing that I wanted to do today was really look together what a literature review looks like what it actually looks like on paper once it's written. So you search for things, you look for articles, and then what does it look like? You can also, the other way we can do this is you can also take the rest of the session today, so the remaining 40 minutes or so, to just try to look for articles, and then keep note of the articles you find in like a referencing format. So that's the other thing that we can do too. And maybe we can leave the models of literature review for next week. What do you think? Maybe that's a better solution. I think maybe that's a better way forward.
Yes, I think the last suggestion is very important. We have heard you, and you took us through some skills, and we are acquiring these knowledges. I hope if we are giving time to try, and then inform you where we are and how we are doing it is better. Yeah.
Okay. So I think, yeah. Tell me, Mo. Sorry.
It is my personal opinion. I don't know my friends, because I could see many of my friends are trying. So let us get time also, and we keep trying on.
Okay. Sounds good, Amot. I think it's a reasonable plan, and I think it was one of the options. That's why I had a few possibilities depending on how things were going, right? I think given like you said, given what we did so far, what we covered so far, I think it's a good idea maybe for you to have, all of you, to have some time to do some research and actually apply some of these strategies or some of these possibilities. Okay. So I think I'll let you. What I'll do is I think you have some time to go through the different strategies, have a look at the different sites, and then see what happens. See what kinds of see what emerges. What I would suggest is that you keep track of some of the more interesting like articles or resources that you find. So the way you can do that is by writing down for each resource that you find is interesting to you, write down the author, the year, and the title of the publication. That way you can keep track of the ones that you find are most interesting. So basically, it's almost like you're beginning to think about referencing, right? So you take note, so you can create maybe a list for yourself here. Let me show you what I mean. You can create a list for yourself, right? Like almost like a list. So basically you would do this, right? So I don't know, interesting articles, right? And you can do this. You can write down author, date of publication, title of publication, and where, and where to locate it. So where to locate it could be, if it's an electronic source, it could be the URL, right? Or it could be that you say, if it's in a journal, you could say the journal title, right? So Forced Migration Review, or whatever the journal title is. Or if you found it on ERIC, you can put ERIC, for example, right? Etc. Does that make sense? And so then you make a list, start making a list of the articles that you find, or the resources, sorry, I should say, that are interesting to you. I shouldn't just say articles, I should say interesting resources, actually. You could even, if you want, you could even add for each one a sentence or two saying why it is you found it good. So you could even say like, how am I thinking of using this, right? And you can do that for a few resources that you find. Let's say, I would say, even if you did it for one or two, that would already be good. But you can do it maybe for up to 5, maybe. So, what do you say? Does that sound reasonable? So, not more than 5, because 5 is already a lot. But like, even if you get 1 or 2 of those, that would be great. So like, jotting down information for at least 1 to 2 to 3 interesting resources that you find. How does that sound? So you can take the rest of the rest of the session today up until like 4 o'clock, basically up until 4 o'clock there, that you have time in the Learning Center. Try different strategies. Try the different websites. Try the journal articles. Try the journals. Try Omni. Try Google Scholar. Try all the different sources that we looked at. Okay, or even multimedia. You can even try YouTube, for example, too. If there's anything that you find there, news reports, anything that you can find on there as well, right? Just always make sure that they have. Sorry for that. Just make sure that they always have a date of publication, an author, and a place that you can find it again. Those are the key things, right? To make sure that there are reliable pieces of information there. How does that sound? Is that reasonable? Sorry for all the background noise.
No problem. It's okay. We love children too. Yeah.
Okay, so any questions before? So I'll leave you then. I'll leave you to do this work today. And then if you want, you can send me, I mean, I would appreciate if you could send me like some sort of list that looks sort of like the one I showed you, even by later today. As soon as you find a few things, just send it to me so that I can have a look at what you've been able to find. If you have not been able to find anything at all, anything that is relevant to your work or that you find important or useful, that's when you contact me. Just write to me, Mirko, I was not able to find anything, nothing of use at least. what should I do? And then we can we can see what we can do about that. And then next week, what we can do is we can even dedicate a little more time to this. And then I'll show you the videos on reference. Maybe we can watch together then next week the videos on referencing and citation. And finish off literature review. Like the models of literature review, okay? Sounds good? Yeah. Okay. I know that it's a lot in a sense. It's a lot of, I showed you quite a bit of things, so I know it takes some time to just explore them. Now it's just on you to explore them. That's all it is. All right. Any other questions, any other concerns that I should be aware about before we close the session? I mean, or I step off in a sense, and then I leave you to do the work. But if there's any questions, I'll still be around on WhatsApp. So if you have anything, you can write to me there.
I think, Mirko, since next week is we are having a last section on this course, I think, if I'm not wrong. Is this all we have done for the class? Like, I think we don't have the proposal now. Is that we are setting our proposals after we finish the class, and then we get to other courses, and also our as well the supervisors. We will start with them the proposal, since it's almost 15 pages or something like that.
Yeah.
So
so sorry. So go, Mohammed. Finish. Sorry. What was the question that you were getting at?
So what is the structure of the class and how it's ending? What we were supposed to do, and also when are we going to start our proposals, and what are we supposed to do with our supervisors after they accept all of us in, and also what's to come about, since you talk about a class that you're starting with someone called Sid. So
with Steve, yeah, with Steve also. You know Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, so okay, so this is what we'll have. Those are all excellent questions, Mohammed. So by the end of the course, so next week we have our last session together, but after our last session together, what I would like you to do is I would like you to send me before August 10th, if possible, before August 10th, if you can send me another revised draft of your introductions, in addition to the revised draft of the introduction, a list of at least 5 resources that you will be looking at, that you will be reading, and why, at least with under each reference. So each one will be referenced, right? Each one will have a reference, a good citation for it, and underneath a few lines that explain to me why this is important to you. How will you be using this resource? How will you be using the resource? So that's the final assignment for this class. So basically, just a last draft of the introduction, right? A revised draft of the introduction based on the comments that I provided you this last time too, right? When we had the WhatsApp calls, the individual WhatsApp calls, I provided you with some more feedback, right, on the introductions. So just a revised draft again of that, plus the beginning of the literature review. And the beginning of the literature review in this case will just be really the up to 5 resources that you've identified as important, right? So with like a line, with like their citation, and a few lines basically that just express how you will be using it. So that's pretty much, that ends the course. As long as you send me something like that by the end of the course, which you already have pretty much, because you've already sent me a draft of your introduction. If it just requires a little bit of extra work on it, right? Just filling in a few things, and maybe some of you it was just reworking the purpose. I think a lot of the times it was just reworking the purpose, and then adding those few lines, those few resources at the end, basically that list of resources at the end. That ends the course. Then with that in mind, Mohammed, so to answer your question, so with that, once you've handed me that, I will provide you again with some more feedback, obviously. And then after that, what you'll start doing is you'll start reading, right? You'll start reading the resources you've identified. Once you start reading the resources, you will take notes, do what you usually do for a paper, right? You take notes, you start thinking about how will you organize everything that you're reading, right? How will you organize it for your work? And this is when the next session comes in, because the next session will look at what the literature review looks like, right? And so then with your supervisor will help you with the literature review, right? They will help you. You can ask them for some guidance, right? Some of the other resources that they think are important for you to look at for your topic. And then from there, so you'll keep working, right? You'll keep working in August with your supervisor. If you also need my support, I encourage you to still reach out to me. I can still help you get through the literature review and so forth. And then by end of August, what will happen is that Steve Alsop will begin a course, right? We'll begin a course that will look a little bit like the one we've just been doing, in which basically he will continue the next parts of the proposal. So in our course, we did introduction, and we started the literature review section, right? With Steve, you will continue from the literature review, and then you will do methodology, the methodology section, the ethics section, and then so forth. So it basically, it will be the process of the MRPs has started already with our course, and will continue through Steve's course and with your supervisors. I don't know if it sounds maybe a little bit complex in a sense, because there's a lot of pieces, but basically the hope is that by the end of September, you all will have finished your MRP proposals and submitted them to the graduate program in education, right? Because you need to submit it to the graduate program of education, and then they will look at your ethics, they will look at your proposal, and they will and if everything's good, they will tell you, okay, this project is ready to go. You can start to collect your data. You can start to do your interviews, you can start to do your things, right? And start collecting your data. If it's not good, or not if it's not good, sorry, that's not the right way. If there's things that need to be fixed, right? If there's things that need to be fixed, then they will send it back to you for revisions. And then you will work with your supervisor again to revise whatever it needs to be revised. Submit it again, and then hopefully by then it will be approved. And once it's approved, you can then continue with the field work, basically, which means the data collection, right? And basically the course with Steve will follow all of these steps. So Steve will meet with you and will help you follow all of these next steps, while at the same time you will still be working with a supervisor, obviously, with your actual supervisor, which will be the first person to advise you on everything related to the MRP. I don't know if that answers all of your questions, Mohammed. If you still have, let me, are there more questions that emerged from that? I don't know, or was everything clear?
Thanks. Most of the questions are very clear, but there's one question that again come to my mind. When we finish all these things come September, if the ethics or the department gives us the go ahead for the data collection, again, are we supposed to write the initial parts like methodology and all these things, or we can continue with the proposal and then we add on the data collections and then we go it like that?
So okay, that's a good question. So the proposal only contains introduction, which is what we've been writing together, right? The introduction, which means the purpose, the rationale, and the object of the study, right? Which is what we've already done. Then the literature review is the second chapter. So the second chapter contains basically all the relevant research, things that have been written about the topic that you've chosen, right? And so how are you using all of this literature to inform your study? Then there's a third chapter. The third chapter is the methodology. So the methodology is where you will basically explain how you will answer your question, right? So how will you answer the question from your topic, the questions for your topic you haven't, some of you have already generated, but some of you still haven't generated them, and that's okay, because the question for the topic is basically the main thing that you're trying to find out about your topic, right? So for some of you, I'm gonna use your case because your case is very straightforward. Aden, for example, is his goal, his purpose of the research is to find out how much parental involvement is affected by the rate of education, right, Aden? The rate of education of the parents, the employment of the parents, and what else, Aden? What's the third aspect that you're thinking of looking at? Perception, right? Parental perception. So this is how Aden is looking to answer these are the questions that Aden is looking to answer. So the methodology will try to explain basically how you will be answering those questions. So in the case, for example, maybe, and this is a maybe, Aden will say that he will be looking to interview parents, right? To see what are to verify with parents, what are the obstacles that they find to being more involved with their kids. That's the methodology part. So how he will be doing it. He will be conducting a series of interviews with parents to find out what is keeping them back from basically being more involved with their children in your children's homework, right? That's the methodology part. So you explain what and how you will be doing it, basically how and what you will be answering about your topic. That's the third chapter, and that concludes the proposal. So the proposal has these three parts, plus the ethics, plus all the ethics certificates, all the things, all the forms that need to be filled out, right? Which state that you will be taking full responsibility for the project, that you will be asking for your participants' consent, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So that concludes the proposal, Mohammed. All of this part. Then once you start collecting, like you said you start collecting the data. That starts the next parts of the MRP, which is basically, like you said, you add those on afterwards. So after you have the proposal, you add on the chapter 4, which is basically chapter 4 will be data collection, the data collected. So data collection, and so all the data that has been collected, your information about your participants, and so forth. And then you will have chapter 5, which is the data analysis. So it's the analysis of all the data. So that's when you take all the data that you found from your participants, and you find and you look at it, you analyze it, you see what's important to speak about, right? And how it connects to your literature that you found. So is it different from the literature? Is it the same as the literature, right? Is it confirming what the literature has found, or is it giving something new, something different from what you have found in your literature? Maybe the parents, for example, that Aden will be interviewing, maybe it might give them completely different information from what he had read in the literature. So that's important. That's your analysis. That's when you really bring out basically all, what your project did, in a sense, right? And that's when you add to the current literature. That's when you add new information, new ideas, right? And then you have a final chapter, which is usually chapter 6, which is basically the conclusions and the recommendations. So your discussion of the conclusions and the recommendations. So based on what you analyze, based on all the evidence now that you have, all the data that you collected, what would you say? Like, what are some of the responses to this topic? What are some of the recommendations maybe that you make? What are some of the conclusions that you draw, right? And this, recommendations can vary. Like, recommendations they go from, I would recommend more studies because, this was only a first study and there's much more to be learned from this, as you can tell. Or it can be, based on the analysis that I did of all the information from the parents, I would recommend that the schools implement workshops for these parents, right? For example, that focus on these aspects that were brought up by parents. So basically, your whole MRP is more or less 6 chapters. Does that make more sense, Mohammed? I don't know. Or for everyone else too, does that? So your whole MRP is 6 chapters, and you're writing the first 3 chapters for your proposal, right? And right now you wrote the first chapter of your MRP, and you're beginning now to think of your second chapter, which is the literature review. After the proposal, which is the first 3 chapters, after the proposal is approved, then you write the next 3 chapters. You start with the next 3 chapters, which is basically your participants, the data, the analysis of the data, and the conclusions. I hope that maybe that clarifies. I don't know. Maybe I hope, because you have maybe a better picture of the whole work in a sense. I don't know.
Yeah, everything. I think everything clears that one for me, and as well, my colleagues are here. They will talk for themselves. But I have a clear roadmap on where I'm going now, and you made it simplified, and we can, I think, know what we expected and where we are headed to and what we have covered. I think that's a better explanation. Thank you. Thank you.
You know, Mohammed, what also, and Mohammed and everyone, obviously, what also helps is looking at a few of the previous MRPs written by your colleagues. That will give you also a roadmap, in a sense, like you said, a clear road ahead. And you will notice that all of them have this structure. They all have this 6-chapter structure, basically, right? Where it's introduction, which is everything that we wrote so far, literature review, chapter 2, chapter 3, methodology, chapter 4, data, participants and data, basically data collection. So how you collected your data, basically, which sometimes is different from the methodology. That's why, because the methodology tells you is how you're planning on doing it, right? And then the data collection process is how you actually did it, which might end up being different, right? Because you might have wanted to interview 7 people, and then you only got 3 people, right? You were able, so that happens, and that's part of the process. So you have to state that, right? In your chapter 4, basically. Then chapter 5 is usually data analysis. So that's when you basically look at everything. You look at all the data that you have, and you try to make sense of it. You try to basically piece it together in a way that makes sense, right? Other times is you try to tell the stories. Other times you just tell the stories of your participants. And that is the data analysis part. And then finally, you have a chapter 6, which is your conclusions and your recommendations, basically, after you've done all the study. That's an MRP. That's a major research. And you have your references, obviously, at the end, which will have to be there, right? Keen, I noticed that, okay, no, never mind. I thought Keen was going to say something. Sorry. Hassan, please.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask about, although it is a very, very last chapter, but when data is collected, when all these informations are collected, in most cases, in our previous work experiences, when we do work with NGOs, we help them gather the data.
Yeah.
So they don't used to involve us in analyzing the data.
That's right.
In fact, it is even quite easy when it comes to analyzing numerical data. That is, quantitative.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that I'm hopefully going to go through quantitative. Qualitative. So now, because quantitative is more of number, you will mention at the end that number of families have this.
Yeah.
This number of families need that. It is a matter of number. Now, the question is, how are we going to come through the analysis after we interview people and get the view, collect them, record it? So that part we need is a little bit.
That's an excellent question, Hassan. That's an excellent question.
I don't know whether the fellows parents have the same.
Okay, so I can't answer fully your question now, and I'll tell you why I can't answer fully your question now. That's because there are many ways, Hassan, many methods, right? In analyzing qualitative data. Every method every method has its own rules and its own objectives and its own goals. So I'll give you a few examples. So some ways to analyze, so the traditional way of analyzing qualitative data used to be something around the idea of data analysis, so analytical. So what that meant was the researcher would take everything the participants told them, right? And then you thematize that. You would thematize them. So that means you pick specific themes, Hassan. Does that make sense? That like every interview and every interviewee or every participant told you, right? So for example, let's say all the parents I'll keep using Adam's work because I was just using that as an example, but every parent he interviews, all of them talk about, for example, the fact that they don't have time after their job, right? So let's say that becomes a factor. So you would, as a researcher, you would say one of the themes is time, lack of time. None of the parents have time to dedicate to their children's homework, right? Or assignments, because they work until 6 p.m. I'm not saying this is true. I'm using all like maybes, right? Yeah. So then you would thematize that as lack of time or restrictions due to jobs, right? And then you would say, for example, underneath, right, that this is what emerged, that a lot of the parents spoke about the lack of time because of their jobs. And then you would use specific quotes from your participants to back that up, right? To show how they spoke of time. Does that make sense? So you thematize. That's one way of doing it. That's one method. That's one method of data analysis. Another method of data analysis, that's sort of it's called grounded theory. It's called grounded theory, more or less. Another approach is narrative inquiry. Narrative inquiry. So narrative inquiry means that you look at each parent, for example, as a different story, as a narrative, right? And so it's a different kind of analysis because you're not really thematizing, you're not introducing themes. What you're doing is you're taking one or two words that the parents said that are very, very interesting, right? The way that they've defined themselves, basically, Hassan, the way that they've defined their lives or the way that they define their ideas, and you introduce them as single stories. Everyone has their own story. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's a different way of doing it, right? Because on the one hand, you're trying to generalize. In the first approach, you're trying to generalize. You're bringing themes that cut across everyone, right? In the second approach, you're trying to actually distinguish. You're trying to say how each story is different from the other one. So you're trying to present them as different stories. So these are two approaches, for example, which are already different in the way you do analysis. And both of them are equally valid. Both of them have their advantages and disadvantages. And it really just depends from the goals and purposes of your research. For example, Hassan, for your work, I think narrative inquiry would be really, really good as a method. I'm not saying you have to do it that way. I'm just saying that it might be really good because if what you're interested in is the experiences of different students or different youth, right, Hassan? Then what you might want to do is might want to present every story as a different story, right? Rather than try to generalize and pick themes that cut across everyone. You see what I'm saying? It might be more beautiful, more powerful to actually tell the stories individually, like a few of the stories individually, and highlight perhaps some of the key ideas that each person finds, like the key experiences that each person identifies. So you present those experiences rather than themes. But there are many other ways. There are also other ways of doing data analysis. So this is why I told you I can't fully answer it, because to fully answer it would require to go over every single method that is out there to do analysis. So so my answer is two things, Hassan, and everyone else. First of all, Steve Alsop will be looking at methodology with you. Steve Alsop will be looking at methodology with you. So he'll be telling you more about data analysis as when you start the course with him. He'll be focusing on a few specific ways of doing data analysis, which he will give you. Tell me, Hassan.
What do we call this method? Oh, the second method where you said you take it, participants' history differently and you build up.
So it's narrative inquiry. So it's like, you're inquiring into narratives, right? And by using narratives and inquiring through the use of stories, right? Does that make sense? So you're trying to make sense of a question, but instead of like trying to give like a full answer, you're using stories to give the answer to the question, right? Does that make sense? It's different from saying like, it's different from saying like all these people, they all need the same thing, right? They all talked about, again, time, for example, as a problem. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is by showing how each person thinks of this experience differently. So it's by providing their story rather than trying to thematize. Both, tell me, Hassan.
Yeah, I will appreciate if you elaborate a little bit that in a paperwork, and then you share with me maybe later about these three methods.
Yeah, this is what I was about to do, Hassan. So in the I'm
interested at your own free time, maybe.
Yeah, of course, absolutely, Hassan. We can schedule a WhatsApp call and we can go over together some of the methods, and I can do that. I can do that with each of you in a sense. I can do that with each one of you. We can talk a little bit about methods, right? Like with each one of you, I can do that separately. That's completely fine. I wanted to show you, before we do that, a good place to start for everyone, Hassan, for you and everyone else, is, so in Susan Tilley's book, right? So if you read, we pretty much stopped at, where did we stop? I think we stopped around page 36 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But if you continue reading onwards from pages, here, I'm trying to find it, Hassan, give me 1 second. But if you start from page 46 in the book, where it says collecting data, right? And then you read onwards.
Page
46, Hassan. 46. 46.
Okay.
And you read further. So you can read further up until page, until basically the end of the chapter. Until more or less page 66, basically 67. If you read those parts, it will already tell you, it will give you already.
Until 56 or 66?
66. And you don't have to read all of that at once, obviously, Hassan. It's 20 pages, so you can read them a little bit at a time, right? But it will give you some more sense of the next steps. Also, if you want to look at specifically about data analysis, like if you're really interested in data analysis, chapter 6 is all about data analysis. So that will actually show you different ways of doing data analysis. So if you want, what we can do is you can have a look at these, and then for those of you who are interested, we can talk a little bit more on WhatsApp about some of the questions that you have. That's data analysis. But the reason why I didn't start with this is because it's still very far away, Hassan. That's why. It's because I wanted to take it, like I've been saying, I wanted to take it one step at a time, right? Rather than like rush all the way to data analysis already. I was also aware that Steve is going to do that with you anyways. So that's why I didn't want to, like in a sense, overstep what was going to be done by Steve anyways. But I really, what you should know about me, Hassan, and everyone, I really enjoy doing research. Like I enjoy research. So for me, having conversations about research is really interesting. So whenever you want to have a conversation about methods or about different ways of doing research, I'm open to having it. Like I'm really curious. So I love it. So all to say that if you ever want to have a conversation with me about methods, about, you know, if you want to ask with me, Mirko, what do you think? What methods should I use? Or do you think that, I don't know, I should be looking at other ways? I'm here. I really enjoy it. That's all I wanted to say. And the other thing I wanted to say is, Abukar, I thank you so much for coming. I saw you, by the way. I saw you coming in. I just didn't want to interrupt the class. I'm really happy to see you. I hope you're doing okay. I know you won't be doing well, but at least okay. At least I hope you're doing a little bit better.
Thank you. Thank you.
I really appreciate you being there. It's nice to see you.
Thank you. I'm also very happy to see you.
I'm glad. I hope things are okay with your family, Abukar, and I hope things are proceeding. I hope you're having some time to take some time to, you know, to mourn and reflect also, and take some time for yourself. I hope you've had that time, and you still have some. There's very little to say. I don't know, Abukar. I'm really sorry for everything that happened. You know. And that's all. That's all I'll say. We're with you. I wish I was able to be there with you in person, but I'm trying as much as possible to be there with you from here. No,
okay, despite the distance, we have already shared a good time together.
That's good. I'm glad, Hassan. I'm glad. I'm really happy, and yeah. So, anyways, sorry to going back to Hassan. I don't know. Are there any more questions? Any more questions about anything else in terms of the work? Tell me.
For me, my research topic is still factors exploring factors influencing limited access to education.
Yeah.
Yeah, so resource allocation is going to be in my research questions. I want to add a resource allocation question.
Okay.
Because it's one of the key factors I know.
Okay.
So,
yeah, tell me, Hassan.
It's going to lead the research, maybe. Is it important for me to maybe substitute one of the questions that and bring in resource allocation? Because I also want to bring out that issue.
I know you do. I know you do, Hassan. I know we've been going back and forth with this.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll tell you I'll tell you, this is my position, and you don't have to take it, Hassan. Like, you can also talk to your supervisor. Once you have a supervisor, to see what they think as well. They might be able to tell you something different from what I'm saying. But the reason why I keep telling you, Hassan, that I think you should focus on the experiences rather than the factors, is because the factors are, I think they will emerge from the literature review. That's what I think. So when you start looking for resources and documents, Hassan, on the area, right, on the area of Kolbio, but also just generally on the area of also generally on Somalia, right? You will find that I think that a lot of the factors that are impacting the limited amount of schools in Kolbio are the same factors that are limiting, like they limit other areas there. No, do you see what I'm saying, Hassan? So it's because obviously it's a result of the civil war. It's a result of, like you said, of the lack of resources many times, right? Like not being provided to it. But there isn't much to say. That's what I'm trying to say. There isn't much to say there, like in terms of data collection. Do you see what I'm saying? There isn't too much to say in terms of the factors. I think there's more to say in terms of how it's impacting young people in Kolbio. I don't know if does that make sense to you, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I don't know if I mean, yeah, tell me, Hassan.
Oh, it's true that all those are going to come out in the literature review and data collection. But what I'm saying is that now generally the title is the title settled one now, exploring factors, or
the title, Hassan. Okay, I'll tell you something. the title in research is always the last thing.
Okay.
Does that make? Maybe you're thinking that's a crazy idea, but that's how it is. So I'll tell you why that is. Because we never settle on a title until the very end, until you finalize your research and you finish writing it, and then you have an idea of what you actually wrote fully. So it's hard to give a title in the meantime. So that's why when you ask me, is it a finalized title? I'm like, not really. It's not a finalized title. It's just a temporary title. It's a temporary title that you've given it. You know what I mean? Just so that you can write your ethics packages and stuff, so that you can have a title to write there. But it's always a temporary one until until you finalize the research. That's when it will become a finalized title, and it might change. So this is why I'm telling you. I think temporarily it's fine the way it is. I think you should temporarily. I think you should call your research impact and experiences of youth, sorry, the impact of limited schools on the experience of youth in Colville. I think that's how you should maybe word it, but it's a temporary one. It's a temporary title, Hassan, and it will change for sure. You'll see. As soon as you also start working with your supervisor, it will probably change again, because the supervisor might also give you some different comments as well. You know, it's a tough role. My role, and the one that Steve will be playing as well, is a tough role, because I'll tell you why. Because we have our own ideas of, each one of us has our own ideas of how you would do a research, and your supervisor will have theirs. And so what you'll notice is that you'll have to be in a dialogue with your supervisor too, because ultimately the supervisor has to be happy with your work too. And so you'll have to go back and forth with your supervisor as well. And so my role and Steve's role as your next course director is always very difficult, because we can give you general advice, but then a lot of it will be depending on and contingent upon what your supervisor tells you as well. Does that make sense? So it's like, it's hard for us to play a part, because we're kind of trying to give you general advice, but then at the end of the day, the supervisor will also give you more specific advice. And you know, we don't want to overstep at the same time, right? Like, we don't want to, you know, tell you, no, do this, and then the supervisor tells you, no, do something else. We don't want to put you in a situation where it's you have two conflicting opinions, you know what I mean, from two different people. So it's hard. Doing this role is hard, because it's trying to help you, but I'm also trying not to put you in a situation of conflict with your supervisor. You know what I mean? I don't know. I hope that makes sense. But it's so that's why it's a little bit hard sometimes to give specific suggestions. By the way, Hassan, did you reach out to the supervisor?
Yeah, I wrote to around 2 of them, but they've not yet responded.
They might be on holiday too, Hassan. Yeah. So that's why. So don't worry if you don't get a response right away. Who did you reach out to at the end?
What?
Who did you reach out to at the end?
Yeah, I sent to someone by the name. I don't remember her name. Let me check. Allow me.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. Take your time.
So Winter.
Sue Winter. Okay, Sue Winter.
Yeah, one is that, and then the other one is Rijal Silva.
Both really good choices. Both really good choices, Hassan. So I can tell you that Rachel is on. She's on holiday for. I know for a fact that she's on holiday, and she doesn't have access to internet much. So that's why she hasn't gotten back to you yet. So don't worry. As soon as she's back, she'll respond to you right away. Hassan.
I was trying to also try Steve. Also.
Leave Steve, Hassan. Leave Steve. Don't worry about Steve. Steve will be helping you anyway, so you'll get Steve's help anyways. So I think it's better if you get as a supervisor someone else other than Steve, because.
So now,
yeah, tell me.
Now in this case, I have sent both of them an email requesting for supervision. Maybe one will be my second reader, but I had not specified it there.
That's fine. That's fine, Hassan. You don't have to specify. It's your choice at the end. So at the end, all you have to do is once you choose, okay, first of all, let them respond, Hassan. And then once they both respond, you're also welcome to meet with both of them and then make your choice, right? You can tell them, like, you can actually meet with them and tell them, you know, I'm also thinking, I have two possibilities. You're one of my possibilities. The other possibility is Rachel, or you don't need to tell them that. You can just simply decide by yourself, Hassan, right? Which one you prefer at the end. And then you can just write to the other one telling them, I've chosen so-and-so to be my supervisor, but I'm really hoping that you will be able to be my second reader. And that's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not a big deal, don't worry. Like you are the person that needs to make the choice at the end if you get 2 yeses. So you don't have to worry about people feeling bad, or it's all good. They can take it. They can take it. Listen, they're fine. They have lots of students to supervise anyway. So
my last question about the topic is instead of limited or few schools, of focusing physical school buildings, schools, what if limited education opportunities? Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, both of them are good. Both of them are good, but I like the limited educational opportunities. It's interesting. I think it's nice the way it's worded, because I think when you say educational opportunities, I think you will get a lot of results. I think, Hassan, a lot of search results, because it's a word that has been used a lot in the literature recently, like educational opportunities or learning opportunities, or I mean,
better.
Yeah, you can even. I like educational opportunities personally, Hassan. But it's your work, so it's your choice. It's the reason why I'm saying that, Hassan, is because some learning opportunities is one thing. To me, learning opportunities is one thing. Educational opportunities is another thing. So the way I see it is like learning opportunities could be even connected learning, for example, right? Just the possibility to take a course online. But the way I see educational opportunity is something that also has the role of the teacher, right? So that has the role of, you know what I mean? The teacher figure is very present as well in education. But that's how I see it. Not everyone sees it that way in the literature, right? But I see a difference between learning and education. Learning is just one piece of the process. Education is like a larger process, you know what I mean? That involves learning as well, but not just learning, if you see what I'm saying. But you know, there's different positions on it. You'll see that you'll find different perspectives on things. So not everyone shares the same perspectives, and you'll see that literature that's how it is. It's you know, people write from different perspectives, right? So this is why we focus so much on. I really wanted to focus on your ideas at the beginning. Remember, we spoke a lot about researcher positioning with everyone, like a lot, like repeatedly, maybe even too much. Maybe you felt that I was saying this so many times. Researcher positioning, researcher positioning. We've spent weeks and weeks and months on it. And you might have felt like, man, Mirko, you're talking so much about this researcher positioning. Why? Over and over again. But the reason why is because it's really important that you're aware of what you think, what your thoughts are of something, what you've seen about something, because that way, when you look for literature, you're able to situate yourself, right? So you know how to use, like, if you find someone that's saying something different from you, you'll know how to use that piece of resource, right? You know that he's saying or she's saying something different from you, and you'll know how to use that piece, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, son.
When citing literature review, maybe if you cite like limited education opportunities, or if you cite like resource allocation, or if I cite like